Good afternoon and greetings from UB. Welcome to our Alumni Webinar Wednesday series. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement and the UB School of Management, we are delighted you are able to join us for today's presentation. My name is Christy Fields and I oversee the Alumni Careers and Lifelong Learning program here at UB. And today I am honored to welcome and introduce you to Molly Anderson, Executive Director of University at Buffalo's Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness in the School of Management. And in this webinar today, you will learn how you can live life on autopilot and achieve some of your goals, or you can step out of your comfort zone and fulfill your leadership potential. Molly will share the wonderment in all moments that helped her and others become better leaders and have happier, fun, and more fulfilling lives. Molly is also the former president and CEO of Leadership Niagara, where she transformed New York State's longest-running community leadership organization into a nationally award-winning graduate-level program. She has extensive management and leadership training, which began 30 years ago as a program director of the American Management Association's Operation Enterprise program, taught by a worldwide faculty of CEOs. Molly has traveled to 14 countries and recently initiated an educational partnership to develop a global center of leadership in Ghana, Africa. Her partnership in Russia with educators and business leaders has brought her there 12 times and has spanned 2 decades. Molly attended the University of Buffalo and Houghton College and studied communication and management. She is a graduate of Harvard Business School of Buffalo's program for nonprofit managers, United Way of Buffalo and Erie County's Board Governance Program, and FBI Buffalo Citizens Academy. She is also a coach for UB School of Management MBA Leader Course students. We will leave some time at the end of today's webinar for Q&A, so please feel free to ask as many questions as you would like. There is a question box on your GoToWebinar control panel. We will get to those during the Q&A session that we will hold at the conclusion of Molly's presentation. So with that said, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Molly Anderson.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Christy said, my name is Molly Anderson, and I serve as the Executive Director of UB Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness, which we call CLOE. Our goal here is to work with UB's renowned faculty, researchers, and experts, and partner with organizations big and small, locally, nationally, and around the globe to create better leaders and organizations. In the past 2 years, we expanded our programs in leadership, innovation, and organizational development to over 50 companies, and as you heard her say, we're currently partnering in the development of a global center for leadership and social innovation in Ghana, Africa. We've brought some of the most influential names in leadership to Western New York, including Adam Grant, Wharton's top-rated professor and best-selling author of Give and Take, which brought over 360 leaders across Western New York and Southern Ontario together for our annual CLOE conference on the power of people-oriented leadership. We also recently initiated a new podcast series in collaboration with 43 North, the world's largest business competition, to provide leadership insights and expertise to the startup community for leaders here in Buffalo and beyond. So thank you for participating in today's program. I'm honored to speak to you through a webinar on leadership. And since leadership is a topic that is so broad, I narrowed it down to leadership starts at the end of your comfort zone. I was sharing my own experience. I've spent over 30 years working with thousands of leaders from all backgrounds, all industries, all over the world. And I will tell you when and where I've seen leaders change for the better. If you feel that you're living in the status quo, spending time around the same people, doing the same old thing, bored, unchallenged, or just too comfortable, please don't go anywhere. You're the reason I'm here today. My hope is by the end of this webinar, you're off of autopilot, that I'm able to help you think of new ways to reset your creativity, turn yourself around, step out of your comfort zone. I will share stories that I hope will help you reflect on your purpose in life, inspire you to learn new things, and open your mindset to other cultures and perspectives. And here's the real test. The next time someone asks you what's new, that you're ready to answer with passion and excitement. Are you ready? Let's go. I'd like to begin with an icebreaker. I'm not a huge fan of icebreakers, but they certainly serve a role in helping us get to know each other and uncover facts. If we were all together and able to talk with each other, you would be able to participate in this in the same way I am. But just to get things going, I thought we'd start with a game that we call 3 Truths and a Lie. Let's see if you were listening to my introduction or if you already know me. I'm going to present 3 things about me that are true. 1 is a lie. You tell me which is which. Okay, that's the only cheesy effect I'm going to have, I promise. I had to do something fun. I've been to Russia 12 times. I am multilingual. I have 4 children, and I met Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai. I'll give you a moment to think about that. Okay. I have been to Russia 12 times. You may have heard in 20 years. I was invited in the 1990s when I was 26 years old to help with the transition from communism to a market economy. There I am in the middle. It's 30 below. You wouldn't know it by the smile on my face. It's a wonderful culture. UB just featured a great story on the 20-year partnership I've had. I won't go into any depth today, but it certainly tells you a little bit about me and the kinds of adventures I like to go on. I did meet Malala Yousafzai when she spoke at University of Buffalo as part of the Distinguished Speakers Series last fall. CLOE was instrumental in sponsoring that speaking engagement. In my opinion, she embodies all of the characteristics that make great leaders. And if you stick around to the end of this webinar, I will tell you why. And believe it or not, I may look young, but I am the mother to 4 children, Michael, Kate, Oscar, and Richard, ages 23 to 7. Being around kids is great for getting out of your comfort zone. If you just look at my music playlist put together by my 17-year-old daughter, there's lots of songs and choices I wouldn't have made on my own. It's always great to be around kids to learn and open your mind to new ideas and thinking. As you can see in the picture that's in my house, there's not a lot of toys and things on the walls. A little bit about my family. We're minimalists. We like to enjoy experiences, not things. Between the 4 of these children, they've been to Cuba, Colombia, Morocco, Thailand, Russia, Europe, Spain, Costa Rica, Mexico, and some others. And here's the lie. I learned 3 languages and can't speak any of them. Embarrassing to admit to. I know a lot of phrases, and I certainly know how to welcome people in their own languages to the countries I've been to. It's something I continue to work at, but if I could have one superpower, this would be it. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a busy mom and professional. I love getting out of my comfort zone. I've traveled to 14 countries, from Singapore to Haiti to Russia to Africa, but it wasn't always that way. There were some defining moments and mentors in my life and my career that propelled me into opportunities and experiences that most people only dream about. Like many, I like to operate in my comfort zone. It's fun to be a big fish in a small pond, and for good reason. Our comfort zone is comfortable, it's low stress, low anxiety. We know what is going to happen. But then I learned that what happens when you do one thing every day that scares you. Today I'm doing my first webinar, and if you don't think that is scary, try it sometime. I'm going to take you back 30 years to an experience I had that Christy mentioned with the American Management Association, where I was the program director. It was called Operation Enterprise, and it was designed for high school and college students. Initially, it began in the 1960s to teach the sons of CEOs about business. Well, they've come a long way. By the time I started working there, young men and women participated in the program from all parts of the world to learn about business, management, and leadership from a global faculty of CEOs and top-level executives. It was a dream job for me, much like the one I have right now. It was located on a camp in Hamilton, New York, near Colgate University. And I worked there between semesters at the University of Buffalo. We had a work hard, play hard philosophy. By day, we would listen to executives and then golf, water ski, and have all kinds of fun with them so we can continue to learn from them in an informal way. I was grateful to have that experience. I, to this day, learn more there than any other setting. So this is a picture of the camp where I worked, and there's the beautiful waterfront of Lake Moraine. For every program, we had a challenge on the chalkboard to each of our participants at the beginning of the 10-day program to try something new. We reinforced this message every day to our students. On the last day of the program, they had to tell us what they tried new. It was a great tradition in our program. It was hilarious, and it was just such a great challenge to offer to people in a very comfortable setting. On the first day of one of the sessions, I'll never forget when I met an introverted 17-year-old boy who happened to be the son of a CEO of a major manufacturing company. I invited him to join me and the other students at this waterfront for some afternoon recreation. He said he didn't want to go. I asked him a few questions and discovered the reason why. He didn't know how to swim. He was embarrassed because he was 17 years old. Well, at Operation Enterprise, we worked hard to create a culture of trust. And I suggested that this was a good environment for him to try something new, but he resisted. The next day, he allowed us to give him swimming lessons. And by the end of the 10 days, he was water skiing around this lake. He was our hero. We were also proud of him for having the courage to try something new. It changed his life, and it changed ours too. He had so much confidence, his parents didn't recognize him when they came to pick him up. He even had a girlfriend by the end of the week. And I'll never forget how that felt and what that did for him. Imagine if I hadn't taken the opportunity to discover why he didn't want to go down there and what it did for him. And I'd love to know what he's doing today. I have no doubt he was a success. So trying something new became a way of life for me. It's a mantra. I found that when people tried something new, they're challenging their minds, their bodies. They began to see things differently. They began to see themselves differently. They became open to change and new possibilities. They became more creative and confident. When you try something new, find somebody who can be an accountability partner to encourage you, like we were to the boy who was learning to swim. We were there for him to root him on. And if you do try something new, I recommend that you come up with a reason or a few that you want to tackle this obstacle. Ask yourself what you're going to get out of this experience. And once you have your answer, write it down on a piece of paper and keep it with you. It can be a little phrase that you repeat to yourself every time you're thinking about backing down. Now, I did this when I was in my early 20s after coming off of working for the AMA. And one of the things I wanted to work on is just being more enthusiastic. I hope you can tell in your voice that it's not a challenge for me today. But when I was 20-something and heading to a board meeting or a Rotary Club where I was a young woman and there weren't many people like me in the room, I had to actually coax myself out of the car. So I would write down, be more enthusiastic, 5 times, and I'd underline each one of them. And it was something I kept in my pocket, and I think it's really made a difference. So inspired by my days at the American Management Association, I became very interested in people and leadership. I had a very unconventional path that took me to the helm of leading several nonprofit organizations at a young age in Western New York. And through that experience, it helped me understand the challenges facing our communities and introduced me to the people who were getting things done in our community, and it also helped me develop a strong network. So about 10 years ago, I was given the opportunity to take over as CEO of Leadership Niagara. I felt the community and the world needed better leaders. So I decided to take a fresh look at the organization's mission. So during my first 30 days on the job, I received a call from one of our adult students named Janine. Janine worked at a bank as a manager. She called to let me know that she wasn't coming to the class the next day. She kind of caught me off guard. So I asked her why, and she told me she couldn't come to the session because it was being held in a healthcare facility. She said her mom passed away in a healthcare facility, and therefore she wasn't going to make it because it would be uncomfortable for her to be there. I didn't know what to say, so I told her how sorry I was and excused her from class. I got off the phone, thought about it for a bit, and a few minutes later I called her back. I said, Janine, I know you suffered a great loss, but I also know that you're part of a class of leaders who are supposed to support and encourage each other. And as hard as it is, I want to ask you to please come to class tomorrow. I feel I wouldn't be doing my job as director of a leadership organization if you didn't know that I'm here for you and so is your class. Janine thanked me, but she said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Well, guess what? Janine showed up for class. She and her husband and coworkers were taking bets that she couldn't do it, but I believed in her, and she didn't want to let me down. It was a defining moment for Janine, but also the organization I served. I saw the growth that takes place when you do what is uncomfortable. It meant so much to her that at the end of the program, she invited me out to lunch with her boss at a local bank. And, I just think, had I let her off the hook, how would her life be different? So what I did with that is when I went back to Leadership Niagara, I designed an entire program around helping people be their best selves and to be better leaders. And we hired Fortune 100 consultants, and we developed coaching and mentoring. And we made sure that we challenged people to try new things. And we made sure that we held each other accountable. And we looked at things differently. And this is a quote that really sums up our philosophy. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. If you want to be a leader, if you want to speak up, if you want to motivate, encourage, inspire other people, you have to be willing to change and transform your life. You have no right or credibility to ask other people to do things that you wouldn't do yourself. So being a leader, changing the world, isn't about gaining power, wealth, telling people how to think and behave. It's about living out a purpose and sharing it for the greater good. And this idea really caught on. And just to show you, this really did happen. People came from 3 states in Canada to learn from us how to be better leaders. And we got a lot of attention for it. We doubled in size, and people came from all backgrounds. And people had the humility to say, no matter where I am in my career, no matter how many opportunities I've had, whether I'm young or old, have a degree, don't have a degree, we all need to be better leaders. And we all need to be pushed out of our comfort zones. So I took them everywhere from Bikram yoga classes to a C-130 airplane, through neglected parts of the inner city, on the streets overnight, in prisons, in courtrooms, in places that made them just see the world differently and see themselves differently. Einstein said, a person who has never made a mistake never tried anything new. Getting out of your comfort zone can help you become more creative. And to be creative and innovative requires failures, setbacks, trial, and error. Well, you're probably wondering, why do I need to be creative? What does that have to do with leadership? Well, personally, I believe that the most fulfilled life is the most creative one. And being creative is how people find out and discover their purpose, by trying things out. There's a strong correlation between living a purposeful life, being creative, and maximizing your leadership potential. Professionally, the most successful career is the one with creativity. And I believe everyone is born with creativity. I want to tell you about a story that happened a few months ago. I was invited to Ghana as part of a partnership through UB to start a global leadership center. And as part of that, I was asked to take part in a medical mission with people living in the remote, impoverished, and forgotten villages on Hope Island in the eastern region of Ghana. Talk about getting out of your comfort zone. I had never been to Africa. And what I know is that despite the progress that's been made in healthcare delivery over the years, Africa has still experienced a serious shortage of doctors and nurses. The situation's worsening and will reach an unimaginable level in the next few years if it's not taken care of. We were escorted by 3 members of the Ghanaian Navy. We traveled there by boat. There was no law enforcement on the island, but I felt very safe. When I arrived on shore, a little boy met me with a bucket of water and washed off my feet. It was so humbling. And a tribal chief greeted us at the shore to welcome us and to thank us. He then allowed us to set up a triage, examining rooms, and a pharmacy on the island. And what happened next were hundreds and hundreds of people walked from 8 villages from the island with all of their children and sat in the hot sun for hours just to have the opportunity to see a doctor, to receive treatment. When we looked out at all the people, it was endless. The medical team, though, from University of Buffalo persisted. They weren't going to stop until all the people who waited in line to see us were treated. We were told, though, that we needed to return to our small boat before dusk so that we could safely cross the lake. Now, this isn't just a little lake. This is the world's largest man-made lake to the mainland. It was already becoming dark outside, and in the Afrin Plains region, darkness is total darkness, not one light in the sky. Well, the boat didn't have a light on it, and one of the nurses on the team happened to have a tiny flashlight in his bag, probably no brighter than the light on your cell phone. We used that light to guide us across the lake, and as you can see in this picture here, there's trees sticking out everywhere. A net that was caught on one of those trees got caught on our boat and was tangled in the boat's engine. We almost capsized. And one of the members of the team began to panic, but the others helped her to remain calm. I looked over at an officer in the Navy, and he was smiling. He calmly untangled the net, and we continued on our way. Soon we were all laughing, joking, and we made it safely to shore. An experience like this is not for everyone, and this is not what you have to do to get out of your comfort zone. But I want to demonstrate that it's in those hard, difficult, challenging experiences that the life-changing, memorable experiences really define you. Was it worth taking this risk? You better believe it. When we debriefed with our students and our team, they said it was the best leadership experience of their lives. It had changed them for the better. They learned to serve with zeal and passion. It took courage, empathy, and cultural curiosity, and they uncovered characteristics and values about themselves to help them become better leaders. When I looked up at that sky and while they were untangling that net from the engine, it was one of those wonderment and awe moments. I thought, I'm in the middle of Africa on a lake and just had the most amazing day. Well, why is wonderment and awe important? Well, I learned about wonder and awe through two researchers, Arthur Costa and Benna Kalick. They identified the 16 habits of mind. In other words, what human beings do when they behave intelligently when they don't know the answer. And responding with that wonderment and awe is when you're curious, when you find the beauty in a sunset, when you're enthusiastic and passionate about learning or having fun figuring things out. Because the opposite of wonder and awe would be, I don't know the answer, go ask your father, or just not bothering at all. Here are the 16 habits of mind identified by Costa and Kalick. Just to underscore a few of them that I hope you picked up in the stories that I shared with you. Persisting, listening to others with understanding and empathy, taking responsible risks, finding humor, applying past knowledge to new situations. As you grow as a leader, I recommend that you think of ways you might practice leadership and the 16 habits of mind. You can easily find lots of resources and books around this subject matter. So just to recap, I've talked about what happens when we go out of our comfort zone. Growth, reward, purpose, creativity, learning. It's easier to deal with new situations, and it's easier to push yourself in the future. I did a quick Google search on ways to get out of your comfort zone, from the small to the big. Start up a conversation with a stranger in a grocery store. Listen to a new type of music. Try a different flavored coffee. Break the pattern of being repetitive. Buy a different newspaper. I love this one. I like to read newspapers from all over the world. Sure, interesting to see different perspectives about what's really going on in the world. Find or date someone crazy. I just had to throw that in to see if you're paying attention. I don't recommend that one. I've tried it. Be as diverse as possible. Try karate, climb a mountain, volunteer, become a mentor, find a mentor, join Toastmasters, participate in a webinar, get your passport, travel, learn a language, eat dessert first. So I promised to share a little bit about Malala and what does it mean to be a leader. Most people associate leadership with a position of power and influence. And others think that if someone has an important title or role, then that person must be a strong leader. Well, Malala, before she had any of those things, showed the world that anybody can be a leader, regardless of age, gender, experience, role, money, or knowledge. At a very young age, Malala knew education was the future for her and for girls around the world. But she lived in a region in northern Pakistan that banned girls from attending schools. And even knowing the danger she faced, Malala never withdrew from school, instead hiding her books in her school bag and her shawl to continue her education. And during this time, Malala blogged anonymously about life under the Taliban and later began speaking out publicly about the importance of girls' education. As Malala spread her message, the Taliban sought to silence her, and the danger she faced intensified. In 2012, on her way home from school, her bus was stopped by a Taliban gunman who shot her in the head. In a hospital thousands of miles from home, Malala was in critical condition, unable to speak or breathe without assistance. The bullet cut the nerve on the left side of her face, so she couldn't smile or hear from one side. As grave as her condition was, the chief minister of her province told people, rest assured, Malala will not die. She still has lots to do. After 3 months in the hospital, Malala had made a miraculous recovery. In her best-selling book, I Am Malala, she said her life was spared for a reason, to help others. She did not want to be remembered as the girl who was shot by the Taliban, but instead as the girl who fought for education. It's Malala's sense of purpose that makes her a leader. After facing death, she proved her resilience and courage once again, choosing to move forward and devote her life to creating opportunities for girls to go to school, undeterred by her injuries and the threats made against her and her family. The Taliban made her cause global, and on her 16th birthday, Malala spoke at the United Nations to encourage more access to education for all people living in poverty. The UN launched a petition to demand education for every child, and at 17, Malala became the youngest recipient ever of the Nobel Peace Prize. Malala lives what she believes and demonstrates leadership demands purpose. The biggest misconception of leading change and transformation is that it requires a certain position, power, authority, money, or experience. But when we look at leadership through the lens of Malala, we see that's clearly not the case. The world needs more leaders like her who have an unwavering sense of purpose and are willing to stand up for something greater than themselves and their circumstances. To inspire change and transformation, we must become the change we fight for and model that change for others. She's the ultimate example of getting out of your comfort zone. So to sum things up, here's what I believe. will help you become a better leader. And as I talked about, getting out of your comfort zone, trying something new, looking at things through the habits of mind with wonderment and awe, using those opportunities to really find your purpose and your cause. Practice leadership. I can tell you everything there is to know, but it's not going to make you a better leader. You have to find ways to practice it. And there's ways that you can volunteer or stretch yourself in your organization, volunteer for new roles that can help you practice leadership. And model that change for others to follow, like the example shared with Malala. We also offer a Leadership Accelerator program through the Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. Our next cohort starts on September 20th and is taught by the Dean of School of Management, Paul Teslick, as well as some of our other leadership experts. We have all the information on our website, and you're welcome to contact me if you'd like more details. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm happy to take some questions from Christy if there are any.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Molly. Really appreciate all of that information that you shared and those personal stories and journeys that you also shared with us. A question that did come in, what does winning mean in leadership?
Winning it?
Yeah, what does winning mean in leadership?
I believe leadership is about others. So I don't think it's necessarily about winning. A victory for one isn't always a victory for all. So that's not maybe everybody's opinion on winning, but that would be mine.
Great, thank you. Another question I have is that came in is there are a lot of people working in more of a remote environment these days or telecommuting. How could you be a leader when you're maybe working in that more of that type of environment where you're not having that eye contact with maybe some of your colleagues or employees on a daily basis?
I've had some experience with that. Actually, I ran Leadership Niagara remotely for 7 years after the birth of my youngest son. And it requires a lot of discipline, and it's not as easy as it sounds. So whoever that question came from must realize that. I made sure that I scheduled time regularly to have that face-to-face. A lot is lost in communications when you text and email and don't see each other. Just like the stories I told today, just being present and really understanding where people are coming from is important in making a good decision and being able to help others on their way. So nothing like the face-to-face, but if you have the opportunity to work remotely, that's great too.
Excellent, thank you. And Molly, another question that has come through, do you have any recommendations for dealing with anxiety of stepping out of your comfort zone?
Well, yes, actually, that accountability partner is helpful. And you should have them in all areas of your life, just like mentors. But having that, friendly person to walk you through the process, somebody who can hold you to that high standard. And I find I'm less anxious when I exercise, eat right, get a good night's sleep, breathe deeply. It really makes a difference. As I was preparing for this today, I made sure I had a good breakfast, a good night's sleep. For me, I like to say a short prayer. And, I think that's proven for me to work every time.
Great. And then, Molly, maybe take a step back into your early career. You mentioned you were a young leader, and somebody else mentioned on the line that they were, or they currently are as well. Can you speak about how you were successful, how you built your confidence and respect in the workplace?
Yeah, I raised my hand a lot. I was very young and found myself working in a nonprofit community, which allowed me to have a faster track to the top because nonprofits work with leaders from all organizations. And so it really helped me develop my network and work on causes that were important to me. And it also allowed people to mentor me. I was very open to listening to people, just like I was in the days of the American Management Association. Tell me how you do this. Tell me what how you handle this. Just participating in webinars like this gives you insights in, what makes other people tick and how they've been successful. So I had a huge thirst for knowledge, for reading, and, for asking people, will you be my mentor? As I said, in all areas of my life, whether it's spiritual, family, professional, fitness, it's always good to have those people who can give you that cheat sheet in life. They've been doing it 20 years more than you, and they're happy to share. Leadership is about making other leaders. And so if you find people who really have those leadership values, they're going to be more than happy to help you.
Wonderful. And then another question that has come in: how, as a leader, do you challenge societal norms and find a way to have people look at a situation with a new lens?
Help them become better leaders. Help them find their voice, help empower them, help them connect to people who can make a difference. Make sure that they're engaged in the community. Make sure that they read the news, the real news, the newspapers that journalists produce. And I think, if you really want to make an impact, you kind of have to be a Renaissance man or woman and not just know your industry, but understand how they all fit together. Programs like Leadership Buffalo, Leadership Niagara are a great way to learn about the community and the issues and hear the story that goes on beyond the scenes, not just what you read in the paper, but what they're working on at that moment. I know that that's really helped me, and it's helped me help a lot of leaders get plugged in and disrupt the way things are.
Excellent. And Molly, I know you've made some career transitions as well. So any idea regarding how to successfully join a new environment and then also gaining the trust of your new employees?
Well, I have had coaches, executive coaches who've worked with me. They work for you, and they're going to help you plot out those 30, 60, 90 days. And it doesn't have to be necessarily at the beginning of a job, but even just taking on a new role. So I find coaching to be very effective. Listening is really important, and taking a fresh look at things. I call it a back to zero philosophy. I don't know if that actually is a thing, but it makes me think, how would things be if I could just turn the light off and turn it back on in the way I imagined it? And that's how I approach a lot of different organizations and issues. What would this look like if it were to be the way I want it to be? And start from there. I think it's very important, too, to gain trust in any new organization environment that you're working in. Trust is paramount. If you don't have that trust, makes things very difficult. If you have that trust, things go very smoothly.
Excellent. And then, what challenges have you faced as a woman leader, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I grew up in a family with 4 boys, and I had an equal spot at the table. And so I approach situations as though I'm an equal and want to be treated as such. I find that women are real good at helping other women in those situations, people who've had circumstances that, where they were treated differently, that, we can help each other navigate through those. But I feel that maybe my background has given me some confidence in working with men. So I don't see myself differently. I see myself as a human just like them. I really believe that when leadership exists, it's gender neutral.
Wonderful. And the next question that has come in: is there any literature you would recommend related to developing leadership skills? Any resources you'd want to share?
There are so many. I'd be happy to follow up personally by email or phone call or even in person. If anyone would like to sit down and tell me more specifically what they're looking for, there's just so many resources. I happen to be a big fan of Adam Grant. That's why we invested in him at our conference, Give and Take. It's all about people-oriented leadership. We've also had Seth Godin on his book Tribes. But, one of the standbys is good to great. If you want to be a better leader, I think you got to start with that one.
Wonderful. And then also the next question that's come through: how can your leadership principles apply to possibly starting your own consulting business or maybe just a new business venture in general?
Me personally, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think they were just looking for, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're looking to start your own business, how can maybe some leadership skills apply to being an entrepreneur?
Okay. Well, I think you have to develop a brand and a track record of demonstrated success. So you wouldn't want to be consulting in an area that you haven't had some home runs. So I think it doesn't mean years of experience, but you definitely have to have some accomplishments to help your brand as a consultant or a leader. We have a Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership here in the School of Management that can assist in that area if anyone's interested.
Excellent. We can be sure to share that information with everyone as well. The next question that I have for you, Molly, that came through, what is one thing you can do to reset your creativity?
Travel. I find, and that's why it's such a priority in my family. We're not millionaires. I can't just jump on a plane anytime we want. But, we've deliberately chosen with our time and resources to make that part of our life. So there's nothing like going to a new place, and it doesn't have to be out of the country, to just see things in a different way. I was in Saratoga for my son's regatta last weekend, and when I drove back through the farm towns, I was just so caught up with the beauty of it. I live in the city of Buffalo. I don't see that every day, but just reset yourself by getting into a completely new surrounding.
Absolutely. And then, Molly, I know there's every day, technology is changing for us. In which way do you see that new technologies will possibly affect leadership and leaders as we move forward into the future?
I love that we have the ability to communicate with anyone, anywhere. I think of the strength of the partnerships I've started globally in Russia and as well as Ghana, that we can communicate at any hour. So there's so much efficiency in that way, to Skype, to text, to use social media to promote your cause. So while technology gives me some apprehension, it's just been a great vehicle to getting your message out.
Excellent. And then, Molly, what would you say, any advice you could share with others on how maybe an introvert or maybe someone who's a little bit more shy, how can they possibly take some steps to become a leader or even a better leader?
Baby steps. As I mentioned, volunteering. For years, I used to recruit people to come and teach junior achievement. It was such a great training and proving ground for people to go into the classroom. I think public speaking is something that you just need a lot of practice and getting out there to help develop your confidence. Children, I think, are a pretty friendly audience to work with to begin, rather than speaking in front of a huge group of professionals. So I'd say for a lot of people who are looking to get that public speaking confidence, being around other people, Toastmasters, volunteering in the classroom are good ways to get started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Molly. And those are all the questions that have come through. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to reach out to the alumni office. We certainly can get in touch with Molly and get any of those additional questions answered. And I know she mentioned she's willing to have a phone call, email, or just touch base with you if you're looking for additional literature and resources that are available on the topic of leadership. So a big thank you to Molly for that. I just want to say also on behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement in the School of Management, I would like to thank Molly for just not only sharing her time, her knowledge with us, but her expertise in this area, in this field. So we really appreciate and are so grateful for Molly's time today. We have recorded this webinar, and we will send you all the link within the next 24 hours. We also want to have you save the date for some of our upcoming June webinars. On Wednesday, June 6th, we have a guest joining us to speak about supporting alumni with their return to work journey. On Wednesday, June 13th, we're going to have a industry expert, a recruiter out in the field, talk about resume tips and insights from a professional recruiter standpoint. On Wednesday, June 20th, we're going to have a UB alumnus join us to talk about happiness in the workplace. And then on Wednesday, June 27th, we're going to add an additional leadership topic, but we're going to talk about the 10 qualities that really can make or break a leader, and we have a guest joining us for that as well. So we hope that you are able to join us through the month of June for an upcoming webinar. Again, a big thank you to Molly for sharing this time, sharing her time with us. We're so appreciative Thank you all for joining us on today's webinar, and we hope to see you again soon on a future webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.